welcome to the December meeting of the Hampton Bays Alliance. Thank you. A round of applause. Today we're going to be talking about the Pro-Housing Community Program. It's been in the news quite a bit. There's been discussion of it at the town board level. And here to unwind all of it for us and explain to us how it came about, what it is, what does it mean for us as a community. We have by Zoom, we have two people from the New York State Homes and Community Renewal. We have Cathleen McCadden, the Chief of Staff. Round of applause, come on. Show appreciation. And with her is Kate Van Tassel. And we have Tommy John Schiavoni here from the town board. And Curtis Highsmith with the Town of Southampton Housing Authority. We're just going to jump right in because we're running a little bit late due to.
Can you dim the light so we can see?
Oh, sure.
Better?
Yeah. Do you want popcorn too?
Cupcakes, thank you.
Oh yeah.
How's that? Okay, we'll do this in the dark. That's much better. Okay, so I'd like to start with Ms. McCadden. Welcome. Hello.
Hello, thank you so much for having us and giving us the opportunity to talk to you about our Pro-Housing Communities program. We're really excited about this.
Thank you so much for joining us. And if at all you can't hear us or anything, you just let me know, okay?
Will do.
I'd like to begin with how we got to the formation of the program. If you could talk to us about its genesis, what is the reason for it? Why did Governor Hochul pass the executive order that created it? And I think that'd be a great launching off point for us.
Absolutely. When Governor Hochul took office, it became clear that she wanted to tackle the housing crisis. I think for decades, we've recognized or known that there's been a mismatch. We've been great at creating jobs and economic opportunities in our region, 1.4 million jobs created, but not enough homes to match all of the people who've come to our region. And we were unsuccessful creating or implementing a statewide plan that would tackle zoning issues and unlock potential to create and increase housing supply across the state. We were told that that was too heavy-handed. We heard the legislature and people said, try a more incentive-based approach. And that's how we got to the Pro-Housing Communities program. We want to give the tools that local governments need so that they can decide the right way for their communities to grow. And I have my colleague Kate Van Tassel here, who's really one of the architects of the program, who can talk to you a little bit about the program overview and requirements, and in detail how we see communities meeting these expectations.
Wonderful, thank you. Ms. Van Tassel?
Sure. Yes, no, hello, good evening. Thank you for letting me call in from my house. I appreciate the flexibility. As Kat mentioned, Kat and our colleague Karis is about to join us. The two of us run the Pro-Housing program day to day, and our goal for the program has always been to spur creativity among and give credit for the many localities throughout New York State that do want to support do their piece to address the housing crisis that Kat mentioned. I think a lot of, over time, some places have been great about building housing, but a lot of places haven't. And that ends up meaning that there's a higher burden on the places that do address it. And so I think that by spreading it out, and this is something that New York City is just about to finalize, by spreading it out, it makes it more easier for everybody. So with Pro-Housing, we are asking folks to provide some information about their zoning and their permitting processes, and we do ask those in a specific template, and that template allows us as the state to take my favorite stat is there's 1,550 localities, and I swear everyone does their zoning slightly differently. So we ask the people a set of questions so we can compare and contrast more apples to apples. And similarly for permits, we're not judging, we're just saying, that, we wanna, the stats on what your permits have been for housing, for new housing units. And that can be new apartments, new ADUs, new renovated housing, that had been abandoned before, over the past 5 years. And so again, and that's similar, that's standard throughout the state.
So
And
if
so
I could
that's
just- if I
helping
could
us
just-
build a database.
If I could just ask, I'm gonna jump in
yeah.
every so often. If I could just ask, so what kind of data is the state looking for with regard to this program?
Sure. So for the zoning, there is a template, and we're just asking, it really is a list of questions, and it's a way for us to analyze, basically, what does your zoning allow? So if you have an R1 district, is that, an R1 district in Hampton Bays might mean only single family homes, whereas an R1 district in, okay, so now I can't think of another one because you guys are in front of me. I was thinking an R1 district in Hempstead might mean something entirely different. So it's basically asking us questions so we can ask some questions about what your existing zoning is. And then for the permitting data, it's just straight information about when the permits were provided, what the timing was, what the location is, and is it for a single family, is it for a 2-family, is it for an apartment building with 6 units, that type of thing. We do ask for a significant amount of information, and again, and partly on the spreadsheet, so what you'll see is a lot of questions, but that is also because it's for everybody in the state, and we want as much information as you have. If you knew how much it would cost, we'll take it. If you knew how much, the various square footages of every type of use, we absolutely want it. But we'll take whatever people are able to provide, for sure.
Are being personable.
Yes, very much. And today I was on an earlier phone call about this with a locality that is in the Adirondack Park Agency. And they don't have zoning. So if you don't have zoning, then you would not have to, we don't ask people to create zoning for the program. If you do have zoning, we do ask you to fill out the template. So again, all of this information also is public information currently. It's foilable, it's public information, so we're just collecting it in a certain way that'll help us see the bigger picture. So each individual town's information might be small, but when we can see the bigger picture, that'll help us, make good judgments for providing housing in the future.
Not just for us, but for your community. One of the aims of the program is to provide this information in an accessible dashboard on our website, so that when your community has or starts to have conversations about what increasing supply looks like or increasing housing in your community should look like, you have real information about permitting, your zoning, and other census data that we've collected and we'll put onto the map.
Does the program have any kind of an estimate as to how much time that should take each municipality to complete?
Sure. Honestly, it depends on a number of factors, including, the first factor is how complicated is your zoning. So one, we've come across villages that have literally 2 or 3 zoning districts, and that's pretty straightforward. That's pretty easy to get through. And there's one, I believe, had 52 as our record. So if you have 52, it does have 52 zoning districts, it will take you longer to answer the questions. It is relatively simple, it's just answering questions, but it is, if you have a lot, then it'll take a little bit longer. And again, similarly for the permitting, it is just for housing units. It's not all the permits that you've released in the past year to 5 years. And so, again, it depends on the situation. Some folks, if you guys have you already use an electronic software system, then we've had folks that are able to just click a button and press a query for us. Some folks have said, we have a file cabinet with paper permits. That was, again, one of the people I spoke to today. And then, if that is more your situation, we would probably do a follow-up conversation with the clerk and see what we can get done. But we're very flexible.
And
all that to say, so if it is on computer, it probably will only take maybe an hour or 2. If it is more hands-on, it might take a little bit longer. But still not an egregious amount of time.
And once you submit everything, we certify within 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so, and what would be the next step? You provide this information, and
The first step is for your community to submit a letter of intent. That kind of lets us know that you're interested, and then my colleague Karis would reach out to the point of contact, identify the letter should come from your leader of your hamlet, and the what we would do is set you up with a Procorum, which is the system that allows us to take your zoning and permit data. We would set up your account, and again, we take 90 days. We're pretty quick. It just depends on how complicated your zoning and permit information is.
Okay, so just a general overview. So providing the information, it gives the municipality, what does the municipality get for giving that information to the state? Why don't we talk about an overview of the program first, and then we can get into the, not yet, just a moment. And then we'll get into the details.
Sorry, I wanted to make sure I got the finished question.
No, I said let's get an overview of the program first, and then we can get into the details.
Let's start with the 2 ways that you can become certified.
Sure, yep, and so what we just described is the baseline for everybody, and then as Kat mentioned, there are two separate kind of paths or venues to be certified. One is for, as I said, throughout the state, there are definitely places that have seen growth over the past number of years. So if your locality permitted above 3% so we're growth above your baseline of the 2020 census of 3% of the past 3 years or 1% in the last year, then you would be automatically certified after you submitted your information, and you could show us that. So that's one venue, and we've had a number of places that have been able to do that. On the flip side, plenty of places, for a variety of reasons, haven't been able to grow the past year or 3 years. And so for those folks, we ask that, again, the governing body, the board, passes a resolution, and that resolution is standard. We ask that, to be consistent throughout the state, that everybody pass the resolution as it is. That is basically what we're calling a statement of values. It's not a contract, it's not a binding resolution, it's a statement of values saying that we want to be a pro-housing, a place where housing is welcomed and encouraged. And it does list a number of types of methods that localities can use to get to be pro-housing, but it's not a requirement to do any of those. It's suggestions for what can be done, but not requirements. And we expect that some folks might do, 1 of 3, and some folks might do 4 of 5, that type of thing. But so once your locality has passed that resolution, that's when you send all that in. And as Kat mentioned, once we have all your documented information, we run through the process relatively quickly. And then I will pause there for a second, because then the benefit for it is about qualifying for a number of funding sources, and I'll get to that. I'll pause there for a second though.
Okay, no, you can continue on. So.
Good, all right.
Yeah,
so,
please, but keep going.
So once you get through the process, hooray, you're certified. The reason for certification, as I always come back to, it's not just doing it to check a box, it is to promote housing, to address that housing crisis. So your grandparents and the kids coming back from college can have a place to live, because I always remind people that's our goal. But also, if you are interested in applying for a number of grant programs throughout New York State that are discretionary grant programs, then being a pro-housing community is a requirement to qualify for those programs. And programs that, in particular, those are a number of REDC programs, the Long Island Investment Fund from ESD, and then as well as the US program.
What is REDC?
Sorry.
REDC, did you say? What was that acronym?
Sorry, the Regional Economic Development Council is there's 10 of them throughout the state. So each regional development council solicits applications annually, or possibly biannually, for infrastructure projects and for housing projects and for economic development projects. And so the council is local, and then they go through those applications. So that is run through the Empire State Development Corporation. So we help people, we certify that you're certified, and then they run the applications for that grant program. And similarly, the Department of State has kind of a similar program called there's 2 called New York Forward and the Downtown Revitalization Initiative, and you may have heard of those. I know a number of folks locally have gotten that grant, and that is, like it sounds, for the downtown revitalization. That's a way to help do some planning and to do specific projects, often focused on downtown, but not always. And so in order to qualify for that program, you would also have to be a pro-housing community. And that closed maybe a month or two ago. I think those are gonna announce, the last round is gonna announce, I think, early next year. And then it'll open up again next year.
How many such grant programs are there?
Right now, there are
That-
8.
Yes, that sounds right.
On the
I was gonna
list.
say, putting me on the spot, there's some grants and grants, but it's a significant amount of money. It's, hundreds of millions of dollars that you would qualify for.
And
Assuming, again, it's just, or that you would even be able to apply for, we
It's
can't
about
promise.
$600 million in
Yeah.
grants and eligible funds.
How much?
600 million?
In the total
In
pot
the
for
total
all of
pot.
the grants.
What's
Okay.
the highest that each place gets?
Just give me 1 second. So you said earlier that it can be used for infrastructure, housing, so there's a variety of things that, these grant monies could be used for by a community?
Yes.
Sure, yep, and
You
again,
can
we
talk
don't
about
manage
that
the
a
grant
little.
programs directly, those are run through the REDCs and DOS. So, if you're interested in those types of like downtown grants, we definitely encourage you to investigate them. The REDC in particular has a pretty extensive, they have one for each region, so they have extensive resources on their websites.
And we have one program that is administered by HCR, New York Main Street, which is a really wonderful program. It creates opportunities to recapitalize and invest in buildings and that are downtown and revitalize downtown corridors. It works nicely with the downtown revitalization initiative to create some additional funding because it is expensive to do these infrastructure and capital investments.
Now, would a community be able to use that money to upgrade a downtown Main Street area, their facades, sidewalks,
Yes.
things of that nature?
Potentially,
Okay. And I guess my next, well, we had a question here as to what is the highest grant amount? Was that what you wanted to know, Sheree?
Mm-hmm.
The highest grant amount in the pool?
I don't have that number, but we can figure out, there's different thresholds for each program or max.
and depending on the scale of the community and, so. But it's definitely could, in the millions is the option, but not always. Some of them are as low as, 50,000, some of them could be in the millions.
But what we
Depends
can
on
do
the
is
project.
send you, if you go on our website, each of the grants, you can link to the corresponding
program.
webpage or program for the state. And there's more detailed information about each grant and the requirements and eligibility.
Wonderful. Could you tell us in Suffolk County, if you could give us a little rundown of what municipalities have already opted in? Do you
Harris?
know how many or?
Yes,
Do you?
14 on Long Island.
Most of which are in Suffolk, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be able to tell us
Harris, do you-
Yes.
some of the names?
Yeah, Harris is our
Sorry.
guru. She's pulling it up.
Oh,
Yes, let me, and I don't have the counties right in front of me, but I can give you the whole Long Island list. If give me just 1 second, please. All right. I haven't broken down by those who have started the application process and those that are fully certified. So the fully certified in Long Island are Mineola, the village of Mineola, the town of East Hampton, the village of Hempstead, the city of Long Beach, the village of Port Washington North, the town of Brookhaven, the village of Farmingdale, the village of Sag Harbor, the village of Freeport, the village of Westbury, the town of Riverhead, the town of Babylon, and the villages of Port Jefferson and Valley Stream. And then do you want me to read the municipalities that have started but aren't certified yet?
Sure, if you give us a flavor, that'd be great.
Yeah. The villages of Greenport and Patchogue, the town of Smithtown, the town of Islip, the town or the city of Glen Cove, the village of Lindenhurst, the village of New Hyde Park, the town of Shelter Island, and then the last 4 are all villages. We've got East Hampton, Floral Park, Manor Haven, and Island Park.
Wonderful. So, go ahead, please.
I was just gonna say another good resource, if you're interested, if you go to the HCR website for housing, we do have, as Kat mentioned, a dashboard that has a map. I'm a map person, I always like being able to see maps, so that's another good resource as well.
Wonderful, and what I'm gonna do, what the Alliance does is we will, we're videotaping all of this, so we send that out, and we'll also include a link to the website, so everybody can see the information. Yeah, so turning to the practicalities of it, there's been a lot of discussion here about what obligations there are for the municipality. Are you able, if you've opted in, can you opt out? Do you have to take advantage of any of these things? There's been a lot of discussion with regard to protecting home rule and people fear that the state is gonna come in and dictate to us what we build and whether we build and our zoning issues. So if you could address some of those issues, I guess starting with, once you've opted in, are you able to opt out?
Absolutely. It's up to your community if this program makes sense. If you're interested in accessing these state funds, then yes, you are required to become a pro-housing community. But if your community 2 years from now says, we've gotten the grant, we no longer want to submit our data, you don't have to recertify. It's completely up to your community. I was around traveling with the commissioner in 2022 when we were trying to talk to communities about the need to loosen up some of the zoning regulations and be more flexible to maximize communities' housing potential. And it was clear, home rule is very important to many communities on Long Island. We heard you all loud and clear. And I will tell you, there weren't, the legislature was not moving the initiative or the policy, and I don't suspect that it would be successful if we tried to bring it back. So I think the governor heard her partners, she heard her leaders in municipalities and villages and hamlets, and we came back, went to the drawing board and came back with the Pro-Housing Communities program as an attempt to really try to incentivize this kind of thoughtful, innovative push for communities to create more housing to meet the needs of their residents. We have to find a way to house the teachers, the nurses, all of the people, bring new families into communities where there naturally are occurring retirement communities. Help seniors find homes that they can downsize. And we have to figure out a way to grow, or we won't be competitive and our family members and our friends will continue to leave and go to other states. And I think it's really not a requirement. We're not trying to be heavy-handed. This is an opportunity to work with communities who want to grow. And we're trying to be a better partner, reduce barriers, increase collaboration. That's our goal with this program.
And well, let me ask you this. Our town supervisor or our town board has passed a resolution to allow our town supervisor to sign the letter of intent. Now, let's say we decide in a month that we don't want to certify. Would we be able to simply not certify?
You just would not submit any data.
Yeah.
Okay. And if we do submit the data, are we obligated in any way, shape, or form to apply for any of these grants if we were to
No.
get certified?
No.
Okay, and then if so we could essentially let the program, as far as we're concerned, lay fallow and just pass away.
There are other communities, I believe, that are taking this kind of wait and see approach. There are a number that have submitted LOIs but haven't completed the application. And I think people want to see like the list of awards and which communities are benefiting. In what I've seen, and Karis can speak to this more specifically, but many of the communities that are becoming certified have had trouble attracting investment, trouble funding infrastructure projects, capital projects, and so they found it hard to compete in previous rounds for these grants. And so now becoming a pro-housing community gives them a leg up, another chance to be more competitive for these grant programs.
So,
And our partners at our sister agencies are very, they're very diligent about following up with us. So it's definitely, we're all pitching in together to get the housing as a key priority. Yep.
I've seen in the materials, because I've read virtually all the guidance and I've watched your videos, which are very educational, very wonderful. I think the rollout from the state side, as far as the website is concerned, is really well done. My question is that if it talks about how you get a preference in these grants, does that mean that any of these grants, if you're not a pro-housing community, you would be able to apply nonetheless? Or does everyone who can apply for these grants, the key through the door is certification?
So that's a good question. Hopefully you and I appreciate the compliment to the website. Hopefully you saw that information a while ago, and if not, we'll have to change it. What you have caught is that but it is in the original program. It was designed as a preference, and then in last year's budget in 2020, beginning of 2024, the governor kind of upped the I don't even know what the teeth of the program, so that it's no longer just a preference, it is a baseline requirement. So if you wanted any of that funding, any of those same funding grants, then it is a requirement. So that you're correct that was the original and has changed. I hope we changed everything on the website, and if we haven't, we'll go back and check tomorrow to make sure.
I haven't looked at it in the last couple of weeks, but yeah,
Okay,
it was like at least a month ago.
But it's a great question. It's a totally valid question for sure. It is where we started, but it has been changed. It changed almost a year ago to be a requirement.
Okay, great. Anything else from the state side? Because I'd like to turn over to our local officials. Anything else you'd like to tell us at this point?
Just really excited about the opportunity to talk to more communities on Long Island. So we're happy to answer your questions or clarify any questions you may have.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay, let's start with you. Hold on. I think we're going to have some questions for you first.
Great. Thank you, it's very, very helpful. If you apply for, do any of these grants or any of these programs put any stipulations on the town in terms of specific zoning, percentages of affordable housing or things like that? Or is it just grant by grant, whatever the specific requirements are?
Whatever the specific requirements are for that program, it does not modify your zoning or require a certain percentage of the units to be affordable.
But some people, I totally agree. It's not a requirement, but we definitely have seen other places that if they do what they want to change their zoning, then this is a way to help get resources to help them do that. So that is not, but that's not the same thing as a requirement to do it for sure.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ladies, for your advocacy and your very effective work on this. I watched the work sessions that you appeared at for the town board, and I think the education that you did really is responsible in part, besides Councilman Schiavoni who's here and Councilman Iacilli, of really pulling it over the finish line for getting the LOI authorized. So thank you very much for that. I wanted to ask if you could just clarify, a lot of the debate was around what the data is, what the requirements are for the town to provide to the state, and this kind of fear of losing home rule and having Big Brother, delve into all our private information. You said that all the information was public, that was going to be, could you just clarify a little bit what that means, that it's public, because I think there's a level of misunderstanding around that issue.
Sure. So again, we look for two different information types. The zoning map is required to be public information. It may be more accessible in different places, but it is, if anybody in your town or village today they have a legal right to see your zoning districts, right? And so this is just another answer some questions about that public information. And similarly with building permits, the vast majority of places in the state that is they're already, I shouldn't say that. There are many places in the state where you can just look them up online, look up building permits online, and it's a similar kind of situation where even if a building permit is in that file cabinet, like I mentioned, residents have the ability to go. They have to request it, but they have the ability to go in to find that information. So it is all again, it's the same as public information that is available today. It's foilable, it's legally required to be available to the public.
And this is partially responsive to many of the comments and the feedback we heard when we traveled around the state in 2022. Many communities, when we would tell them what their growth numbers were based on the information provided in the census, they would say, oh no, that information is wrong. That information is incorrect. We have more permits than that. And so we would go back and we would say, okay, give us your permit data. Like, let us analyze it and take a look at it. We want to give credit for communities who have grown, who have done the right thing. And so again, this is really about providing information to empower people and communities to have real, transparent conversations about how they think their community should grow.
Quick question with regard to certification. Let's say that you submit your data and the program finds it to be insufficient. Is it just a denial or is there a cure period? How does that work?
Yeah, I'll jump in on this one. Yeah, it's not an outright denial. If there are things we think are missing or more information that we'd like, we follow up by email and just ask you for that additional information. It's a back and forth process. And if for some reason you don't happen to collect that specific category of information, or if for another, maybe it's very, very overly burdensome, again, we're trying to be super flexible. So it's really a conversation.
We want to work with you.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. And the percentages, when we were talking about the two different ways that one could qualify, the percentages, there was 3%, 1%. Those are overall housing increases over the last 3 years?
Yep, so, and the number is, and I apologize, we do separate it out, so if you're a village, it's just within your village, and it's a growth over the 2020 census. So after 2030, it'll be over the 2030 census, but we're not there yet. And so if you have 100 homes, in the census, and you grow, now I'm gonna mess up my math. I'm pretty sure that's if you grow by 3, that's 3%.
Yes.
If you add 3 homes, then you wouldn't qualify. And so, but as well, we should, if you're a town, then we do subtract out the zoning or subtract out the villages. So it can be a little bit easier because again, the idea going back to local control is that we want to give people credit for the things they can control and not for things that they don't control. So if a town doesn't control all village zoning, then their kind of baseline number is only the number of what's within their town limits that they have authorization to change the zoning or the permits for.
And you would count any kind of housing that was created, regardless of whether it's affordable housing, luxury housing, middle income housing, it doesn't matter.
ADU?
No, the governor is clear. We want to build all kinds of
All the
housing.
above.
We need all of the above here in New York State to meet our needs.
An ADU, I know some people hate ADUs, some people love ADUs. We have an ADU funding program that people is, oversubscribed. So which some people do love them. But an ADU is a place where somebody can live, and so if somebody can live there, then that's great. A manufactured home is someplace somebody can live. Those would count too. Single family home, somebody can live there. So we're anything and everything.
Wonderful. Okay, so I think I would like to turn to, let's start with Curtis. How would this program dovetail with the work you do on the Housing Authority, and how would it impact the work you do positively or negatively?
First of all, I want to thank you for allowing me to come and speak to each of you. You've been so accommodating and pleasant, and I'm enjoying the conversation because you're asking the right questions. Kathleen and crew, thank you ladies for coming on and immediately bringing your expertise. You've been very, very effective and very instrumental in getting the message out, so thank you. I think it's important to know that the funding that they're referring to is extremely competitive. It's not just Long Island, it's all of New York State. So they said Niagara, it's Buffalo, it's Westchester counties, Nassau County, Suffolk. So you have all of these different agencies vying for the same pool of money, and in most cases have a greater number of units of housing for less money, because it's expensive to build here in the East End of Long Island. So when we did Sandy Hollow and Spionk, in order for us to actually get that funding, the tax credit funding, we had to combine those two units into one project. So it's not Sandy Hollow and Spionk being separately. They are registered, they're qualified as one project for a total of 66 units. That's 66 units, which was the lowest number of units during that funding cycle, and we got the greatest amount of funding during that funding cycle. We have been saying for years it's very difficult to build affordable housing here in the East End of Long Island. We are a different creature out here. We're a different animal. It takes a lot more than, and can't be put into the same pool as individuals that are upstate New York, individuals that are in other counties, because we are different. We're never going to have the 200 units of housing as one of our individual projects. We're more like the 20, 30 units here or there, clustered over different areas, which probably would be more like a scattered site where we have to combine two sites into one, or get the state to understand they're going to have to put the investment into those 20 unit initiatives. So that's why this study that they're talking about allows us to bring to the table, this is who we are. This is our limitations. This is our zoning limitations. This is our funding limitations, the costs, the resources, the land that's available. I'm still competing, and a lot of people believe that the Community Housing Fund is going to be helpful, and it has been. But I'm still competing with other investors out there for the same parcels of land, and they have a lot more money than we do. So they're bidding on the same project, full cash, better options, pretty much no contingencies, and I have to wait for funding, which takes time. So most sellers don't want to take that amount of time. We have to demonstrate just the complexity in getting these particular projects on the ground, and it has been very difficult. So in allowing us this opportunity now to be registered or qualified as pro-housing, now we can have the conversation with the state to say, okay, we're going to give you all our data, but this is where our deficiencies are. These are our limitations. Can we come up with programs specific for regions like Southampton and East Hampton that are more affluent and that have limitations in terms of being able to create these housing units on the east of Long Island? We can't have that conversation unless we can show and demonstrate we are pro-housing. I'll also say one more thing. As part of fair housing, every municipality has a requirement under the furtherance of fair housing. They have an obligation to forcefully create housing opportunities for the purposes of creating integration, both economically, racially, throughout all of the regions of its hamlet. They have an obligation. In not fulfilling that, they can also lose opportunities of funding if ever discovered that they've created situations where it's disparate impact or disparate treatment that it limited limit a particular builder or a particular project from happening to create those units throughout all of the municipality. So we have to do better, but we also have to come to the table demonstrating that, hey, we're ready to do this. We're ready to make this change. You heard the list of agencies or municipalities that are participating, and those that are on wait. The only name up there that we didn't hear was Southampton.
But some of our villages,
Even our villages.
but Village of Sag Harbor, isn't Village of Sag Harbor one? And what about West Hampton Beach?
Not that I know.
Not yet.
Well, East Hampton, yes.
East Hampton, yeah.
Sag Harbor, even Shelter Island. Riverhead, definitely.
Yeah.
Brookhaven, definitely. So we're the only municipality that has not actively participated, has not filed.
Is there any, if one becomes part of this program, is there any interaction between the state and the municipality whereby the municipality could be provided guidance with regard to what it could do to increase its housing stock or to increase its affordable housing efforts? Is there any part of the program that addresses that?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, you kind of put your finger on one of the big inspirations for the program is both connecting, as you just mentioned. You listed all of your neighbors to share. But one of the other things that we found is that there are other, say, programs that have seasonal communities or tourist communities, and actually even the Adirondacks. I keep coming back to them, but they actually have some more similar issues in some ways with some of the tourist towns in the Hamptons than you would think. And so connecting people who might have that similar experiences to share what has worked for them. And as well, that's one of our goals in the next couple months, in fact, is to expand exactly what you're talking about, is expand our resources so we can, I can kind of spiel off a little bit off the top of my head of, doing ADUs or splitting lots, which is a very fine-grained thing that nobody but a planner is going to care about. But that is exactly the type of thing that isn't as, it's not as complicated as it might be. It doesn't have to be as scary as it might be. And so we are starting to do that, and we hope to expand that significantly in the next year.
That's wonderful.
And Interprop,
Does that sound right?
which is a housing advocacy and CDFI national organization. They do lending, advocacy work. They created a program for pro-housing communities. They've selected one from different regions across the state, and to learn and share best practices. And we are one of the modules. Our affordable housing team, our development directors, and our homeownership team will come in and help teach and talk about the resources we have here at HCR to help build affordable housing and other policies, tax exemptions that they can take advantage of. So we are definitely trying to do that. And as the program grows and expands, I can definitely see us adding additional staffers, planners, people who will be able to help you think through those decisions. And the Department of State has a planning grant that communities can apply for to help you hire a development consultant or a land use or a planner to help you think through a project.
Wonderful. I love the idea that the municipality becomes into a partnership with the state in order to further and advance all of our goals. I have a question right over here.
Hi there, how are you? I actually have 3 questions, so I was thinking maybe you could answer them for me. Number 1, and I'll just say the questions and then you can answer them how you'd care to. Number 1, is there a reason why Southampton has not opted into this? Number 2, you talk about, Southampton, or about affordable housing and people who are coming back from college and everything like that. If they don't require a percentage of affordable housing in this, how is that going to help those people and the elderly people as well? And number 3, we have a lot of local businesses on Main Street. Are you going to help work with them so that they could possibly do something above their unit, offer them some grant money as well, maybe some type of program so that can help the mom and pop stores who are suffering due to Amazon and such sustain their business with that additional income from the housing?
Absolutely. With the Main Street program, you're absolutely correct. That question I can answer because that's our program. That's the main reason we created this Main Street program. There are so many opportunities where you can actually create density or just refurbish and rehabilitate existing rental units along your Main Street to add some additional capacity and rental units. But the first 2 questions you asked me, I would actually say you should ask your council, the town board members, because I don't think I'm equipped to answer why the town hasn't or did not submit an LOI. But I feel encouraged. They passed the resolution. They intend to submit an LOI, and I think that's a step in the right direction. They've made a lot of good, I think, positive steps towards trying to increase their housing supply. But I think folks, like some of the issues we raised at the top of the call, I think people are concerned about home rule. They don't want to lose their zoning authority. But I think you have to talk to them.
Yes,
Ask.
this is
I
where
will
we
say,
turn
Pat,
to
just
Tommy
to
John.
lead- Yep, but to lead on the second of that, going back just about the grandparents and the college students, because that's one of my favorites, is that, you know, part of what this whole process is as you mentioned, an education process. And you're absolutely right, the state, we can't change your zoning for you. And again, I don't know the details of Hampton's Bay, but if, you know, and I think a lot about my parents, right? So if in Hampton's Bay, there are places in Long Island that don't allow townhomes, which are smaller and don't have a yard. My parents are looking at, they're in Virginia, but it's the same concept, right? They want to downsize into a smaller place where my dad doesn't have to mow the lawn. And if those types of housing typologies are not allowed in your zoning, then nobody's gonna build it. And that means that if my parents lived in Hampton Bays, they would have to move outside of the community that they spent their whole lives in. And so we can't change that for you, but that is the type of thing that that's what the pro-housing values mean, is like taking a look and thinking about like, well, what makes sense for our locality? Maybe it's not townhomes, maybe it is ADUs that, you know, I can't build one, I live in an apartment, but if we could build one in my parents' backyard, for example, you know, it's to spur that type of conversation. So your local government can come up with, you know, maybe, I am making this up. I don't, just so you know, I'm not saying this is the right thing to do, but maybe one apartment building for the type of college graduates who want to have their starter, you know, they're fine with the studio, but they still want to live near their family. And then by living there, you don't have 4 roommates living in a house, and then that 4-bedroom house, then that can house a family. So one of the things we talk about is that our housing cycle is broken, and you need different types of housing in different phases of your life. And if your zoning is actually, it's kind of the secret underlying thing that's preventing different types of housing from being built, then it effectively keeps out those different people in different phases of life. So I apologize that this is one of my favorite topics, so if you twigged onto it, so I get to talk about zoning and the cycle of housing, then I'm gonna jump in. But it is true, and there's different ways to solve it, which is another reason that we like to connect different places, is different places have solved it different ways, and they can share information with each other.
And if you would like to do more affordable housing, we at HCR, that is what our main bread and butter, that's what we do here every day. I would love to do more affordable housing on Long Island, especially on the East End. So, you know, we work with Curtis, we are flexible, like you said, we've modified programs, done more of a scattered site program, and we have a small buildings loan program to accommodate projects with 50 or fewer units. We are trying to be flexible, so like we said, we can meet the unique needs and challenges for each community.
Wonderful. So now I want to turn to Tommy John Schiavoni,
Good
our
evening.
town board member.
I am one of the town board members. How are
Yes,
you?
you are.
Tommy John Schiavoni, nice to see you all. Kathleen, thank you for being here, and it's good to see you again, and thank you for having your team with us to answer all of these questions. You know, one of the questions that you had in the back there is that, you know, why hasn't the town of Southampton done this already? And I'll answer it this way. You know, we did take a wait and see approach and didn't jump on it immediately. We have a new town board, you know, there's a bit of a process there, and we started working on this in earnest in the summertime. We had a work session on being a pro-housing community. Well, everything was kind of steaming forward, and when we brought it to the floor in October, there were more questions, I'll just say that. There was some doubt cast, there were some emails and some information that wasn't exactly accurate. I'm being nice here, and you know, and it really kind of got the community a little afraid. And so we put the brakes on that. Had another work session. We had our representatives from the state come and speak to the town board and the public of Southampton, and we put the resolution up again on the 26th, and it passed on the 26th. And the resolution. Thank you. The resolution was to allow the supervisor to send a letter of intent. So, you know, as you heard here tonight, that's the beginning of a process to be a pro-housing community, and a lot of the details were covered tonight. And, you know, for me, I find this incredibly exciting for a number of reasons. I think in this particular hamlet, it could benefit us specifically here in Hampton Bays. You know, downtown revitalization. There's also a public transit modernization category of grant. We have a train station here. I think Hampton Bays is set up so well for an incredible downtown area. And but that takes money. It also takes vision, and it takes in our society, it takes public investment. We have public investment here, and coupled with the grants that the state is offering to the town of Southampton and the hamlet of Hampton Bays, we can use those monies for for the betterment of this hamlet. Now we have something in the town of Southampton that is unique around the state. We now have a community housing fund, right? 53% of us 2 years ago voted for a transfer tax similar to the Community Preservation Fund, but not the same. But so we take 0.5% of the purchase price of all properties that are purchased in the town, and we dedicate it to various housing programs. Now this is important because when Curtis here goes to the state and requests grants, and we have local matching monies, that puts us that gives us a higher score on the grant rubric to get grants. And Kathleen, is that a fair statement?
That is fair.
Yeah,
That's correct.
and so I think we're well positioned in the town of Southampton to do really some fantastic things. When I got on the board in 2017, we had done, the people of Hampton Bays participated in charrettes, and they went to other communities, and they gave input, as well as the community gave input as to what they wanted to see in a downtown. That was 7 years ago. We're going on 8 years on this. And, I supported it then, I support it now. Like I said, I think it's a fantastic community, and it's high time that we do some things. I believe in mixed use. I think having apartments above commercial and office, or, however you want to do that, is a good thing. I think, having eyes on the street is a good thing. It's a sense of community. It's a place where you can get your coffee, whatever you want to do.
I'd like to just add that I found a New York Times article from 1990 discussing the need for revitalization in Hampton Bays and interviewing Hampton Bays residents who said we need to revitalize our downtown area.
John,
Wow.
I lived in Hampton Bays in 19.
Yep.
And,
So it's been 34 years at least.
But can I'd like to finish with, or not finish, but just say this. Up here we have the executive director of the Southampton Housing Authority, Curtis, and Curtis Highsmith. I'm on the town board. What the town of Southampton did in, I think it was 2004, right? That the authority was made.
2003.
And so the housing authority is separate from the town of Southampton. So Curtis can pursue grants, he can pursue private monies and other things to create housing. He has his own board, and so they're separate from the town. A lot like the Metropolitan Transit Authority, they have their own board and they do their own thing. So, but we work together, and the housing authority is it's critical in the town of Southampton. And without the housing authority, frankly, I don't know where we would be in terms of community housing and affordable housing, because you guys are doing a great job, and I would love to see his work ramp up in the town of Southampton.
I have a question over here.
Hi, I have actually two questions. The first one is operationally, I guess Tommy John, which department in town hall would have the responsibility to actually provide the data, that's requested? And then the second question is, you talked about a lot of good ideas about visioning. So what department or which elected official, who would have the responsibility to have the leadership position regarding what some of these visioning, how do you see that would play out?
The answer to both questions would be long-range planning. That's the department that we task for this. We have skilled planners. They went to school for this, and they have experience. We know how to do this. And so there is also a degree of political will from the board to do it. And then there's also community buy-in. Like I said, in 17 and 18, we believe that we had significant community buy-in. It didn't exactly go that way, but that's an important component to it because, we want to do what the community wants. Now, in the hamlet of Hampton Bays, there's 16,000 of you, latest numbers. And, so it's going to be difficult to get agreement on every single man, woman, and child in any place, right? But we are a democracy, and we want to enfranchise the community in this and have significant community buy-in, because I do believe these are good programs. When we had a public meeting in Hampton Bays, we had people come out, and parents, and who were concerned about their children living in Hampton Bays and wanting them to stay and possibly purchase a home. Ironically, my first home was purchased in Hampton Bays. My brother and I bought a home here, but before that, I was renting winter rentals, and then I'm back with my folks, and then, it was kind of a, bouncing around, but I stayed in the area because there were rentals available. At that time, they were winter rentals, or, whatever. I live with a friend, I rented, like we did these things, but the difference now is that those types of situations don't seem to even exist, for a variety of reasons. VRBO. Airbnbs, they've taken a whole segment of the housing stock out of the rental market. Right? It's made it smaller. So, for our young people who want to stay here, who get jobs and, are working, we want them to be in the community, build their lives in the community, I don't know, join the fire department and, coach little leagues and, be in the community. So, that's kind of the goal, to have a variety of different age groups, hopefully more younger people than, people my age, and that the community builds that way. So, and as far as vision, political will on the board, and also with the guidance of our planning department, with the input from the community.
So where are we in the process? Has a letter of intent gone out?
It has not gone out yet.
Okay, but it's,
the
on the table.
supervisor is authorized to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And which department is going to be compiling all this data? Will it be planning?
That is planning.
Okay,
And
have
we're
they
in talks with
started
them
yet?
on how-
Are they working on it? Where are they in the process?
They are, they are not working on it yet because we haven't sent the letter of intent to do it. And it's gonna take some time, but it's certainly feasible. We know how to do these things.
Do we have an idea of what it's gonna take in terms of manpower? What it's gonna cost? Will it cost anything for us?
No, they're gonna
Will there be
handle it
additional-
internally.
Uh-huh.
They just did a study on, the best moratorium, They have capabilities in the planning department. We have the spots in planning filled for them to handle things like this.
Is all of our data computerized? Is it, like,
Well, we are
we were talking
switching
about hit a
over.
button, or?
Well, that's kind of interesting. We are currently working on switching over to a new software, and for the building department. And once we do that, it's going to make this task very straightforward.
Okay. Is there a time frame in which we have to complete the certification or provide the data, and once we've sent the letter of intent?
Is that
No.
to me or
No, the only
Anyone?
timeframe would be, if you are also applying for one of the grants, right? And so you do have to, for some of the requirements, you have to be certified before, at the time of application. But those grant requirements, those grants don't open up until, first or second quarter next year. So you definitely have plenty of time.
But most of the grants, just the submission of the intent, the letter of intent, is sufficient, correct?
For some of the grants, but
For some
not,
of
but it
them.
depends on the.
So if you could explain a little how the grant funding works, are there different tranches, there's different open and closed periods? For those of us who really don't understand or have ever, interacted with grant funding, how does that work? You said there's a $600-some odd million pot. Is that finite? Does it renew?
Sure. Would it make sense for the RID, is that Kara to come back out and I only because I'm not sure I feel comfortable explaining other people's
No,
grant programs.
that's really, we would definitely want to bring our colleagues from ESD. The state has what they call the consolidated funding application. So we try to make it a little easier. There's one application where you can apply for most, if not all, of the discretionary grants that our agencies and authorities have. And each one is different, like I said, but if you go on our website and you see something that you're really interested in or think makes some more sense for your community, we are happy to facilitate a conversation with you and that agency. We are here to, like, again, be good partners and help you collaborate with agencies. So we can definitely get you in touch with ESD, DOS, and DOT.
In most cases, when there's a funding stream becomes available, we as an agency get a letter, it was normally called a NOFA, a Notice of Funding, where we give opportunities, it gives an outline or a detailed outline of the funding, what it can be used for, and how to apply for it. So we get that on a regular basis.
And these grants that you've applied for, is it on a rolling basis? Do they close and then it's finite? You haven't applied for it, it's gone?
There's an open period, there's a closed period. And then normally, typically, depending on the grant itself, they have a merit system. So the number of units, how many are ADA compliant, what is your AMI or area median income, all of these different categories that are placed as kind of the requirements. And then based on that, the state does its own calculation and determines whether you're funded with that program.
Curtis, you said earlier that you identified certain financial hurdles that you have on the Housing Authority to get affordable housing projects done. What is the biggest hurdle you see, other than the financial, like buying the properties and things like that? Are there other hurdles that we should be aware of as a community that we can help you in order to possibly remove them or ease them?
Well, you have to figure that anytime you're doing an affordable housing development, most of what we have on our books right now for zoning doesn't comply. So 9 times out of 10, I'm going to have to request either a zoning change or look for a provision under the code that allows me to get to the density that we're working with. Unfortunately, there's not right now a lot on the books that allow us to get to there. Now, I'll talk briefly about, because we're here and I'm showing you the eastern, where it's been my goal for some time now to look at pre-existing density, like hotel, motel, resorts, and repurposing them for affordable housing. Because they're operating like that now. Most of these different places and resorts are operating as year-round rentals. So if they're operating with that, with no oversight, my concern is they're not taking the interest in these facilities, safety issues, making sure that they're occupied singularly, they're not overpopulating, that it's being maintained in a proper manner. They're not taking those measures. So I always believe that we can take a place that may need some work, which most of them do. Now there's a layer of oversight because our agency would maintain it. We would get money because there is, believe it or not, the state has hotel repurpose.
Conversion.
Yes, conversion funding that allows us now to use that to do the facade and take care of infrastructure. And so now I can make it more residential look. It becomes an asset to the community. It becomes an additional affordable unit for our opportunity. But we have to look at isolated situations like that because it's very difficult for me to go out, find 4.5 acres that I spent $4 million to $5 million on, be able to get the zoning on it, which comes up with a lot of resistance and concerns from the public, which takes a ton of time because now I have to go to community, civic to civic. We have board hearings. There's individuals that may not particularly want it. And so it drags a process longer than most for-profit developers have to do. My measures are a lot longer. It takes a lot more time. Someone asks, how long does it usually take? Well, if you have $2 million to $4 million and 4 years, maybe you can get a project done. Because that's what's taken so far. And that means there's engineers, there's architects, there's specialists, there's counselors. All of those expenses I have to incur while trying to get these projects done. So they're difficult hurdles.
Okay, I have 2 more questions over here, and then I want to turn to the Eastern Motel, and I want you to talk to us. And we're going to pull up the lights so that we can see what you brought.
So Tommy John, you spoke about how like the pattern book and everything like that has gone back 8 years. Is there any way, we've had a couple, for lack of a better term, derailments that have happened here in Hampton Bays. Is there any way that our friends could possibly derail this from happening again, or is there a way to kind of keep that from happening so we can keep moving forward? And then my second question is it possible for a chamber of commerce in a town, like a hamlet or a town, to apply for this grant and then divide it amongst, disperse it to their members that are on Main Street to improve their facades, so that way every business wouldn't have to individually go through and apply for this grant, but the chamber could do it as an oversight to kind of clean up all of the properties in downtown that the members have?
Two very good questions, and to address the first one, can it be derailed? I don't. We live in a democracy,
Right.
and we have elected representatives who are. I think things look good here in Hampton Bays. I'll say that, and I think that there is a desire in the community to do something.
Mm-hmm.
To connecting
Majority.
Connecting the park with the Main Street is a good idea. I've always said that.
Yeah.
Might run on it.
That's
I don't
what
know.
the intention was.
It's So those are fine ideas, and mixed use. But some of the things that hold us up are things like infrastructure.
Mhm.
If we want to have mixed use, we want to have people living over the stores in one story or two. Whatever we do, we're going to need an STP, and we have $45 million allocated for Riverside.
Right.
And, that is, we created an STP up there.
Right.
We do have a revitalization going up there. So these grants, would be absolutely critical for Riverside. But, so it's the same thing here. Not saying that the same communities, but the process is, the same or similar.
Right.
So, and then to answer, the second question, can a civic or so, I would defer to the state on that.
That's
And,
what
I would say the short answer is yes, even if you had to go through the town to be, if the municipality needed to do that, it would be possible for, a local civic-based group to apply for grants through the town.
I believe
Is that
those are,
correct?
they're often the applicants, in fact, throughout the state, So usually in partnership with the locality, so you're exactly on the right track.
Individual businesses would not apply for a Main Street grant. It would be a chamber of commerce, a business improvement district, a municipality, or a town.
Okay, I have another question over here.
I just wanted to clarify the dynamics of the program. Did I catch that the municipality has to recertify every year? Is that right? So does that mean
We do ask, and so, but the goal is to make it that as straightforward as possible, and so we do ask that and just a recertification is that you send us, again, it's about data, so you send us how many homes you permitted in the last year. So the first time you apply, you send the past 5 years, including that year, and and sometimes we kind of, last year we didn't need to because we got all our applications in December, and so we had most of 2024, our 2023's permits, and so probably similar this year. But so say you apply in March of next year, we would ask the year after to send us what 2025 numbers are. But that's all. That's the only requirement on an ongoing basis.
So basically, it's just an ongoing process every year. You would send in the new data for that year, is what you're saying.
Yeah, but hopefully pretty simplified. Yeah, especially if you guys have a new software system, then I promise it'll be easy.
And then, this may sound silly, but what exactly do you do with the data? You're collecting all this data. What are your plans on doing with it?
Sure, and some of it is just research, and like you said, like any one individual town is not necessarily, is not going to tell the whole story. But to as Kat mentioned earlier, we got a lot of pushback saying that no, we really, from places that were like, oh no, we actually did grow, and you're not giving us enough credit, and we want to. In order for the state as a policy and for local places to propose the right policy solutions, we do need to understand where a place is growing, what are the challenges, like is it in fact zoning, which we do think it is, or is it a combination of other things? So we're in the data collection phase, but it is to help us guide our policy decision making moving forward.
But
And if you look at our website, if you go to our website, we have a very nice dashboard and map that we're all very proud of. and the data will live there. The permit information, the zoning data, along with the census information about your community. We really ultimately want to empower communities and people who live there to have the information they need to have a real conversation about housing. Not about, all of the hyperbolic and, kind of crazy things that people say about housing, but let's talk about the facts, like how many people really live, or how many permits have been permitted, and what has that really done to our schools or really done to our traffic. Not just these kind of anecdotal comments that people tend to use or bring up in these conversations. We really want to bring facts and information so that people can have a transparent conversation about what's right for their community.
Oh, that's terrific. So is it going to be an aggregate map so that if I'd like to go on it and not only look at my community, but upstate communities or communities elsewhere?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The whole state.
It's definitely, yeah, we're working on it.
Thank you.
It's not perfect yet, but it's getting there.
Okay, another question over here.
This is all very, very encouraging and exciting. A quick question, having followed the affordable housing issues here and listened to Curtis a few times, I understand that building affordable housing is one thing, but keeping it affordable is another. Are there also state programs that help support keeping affordable housing that gets built affordable?
Definitely. All of the housing that we build with state subsidies or federal subsidies comes with a regulatory agreement. And our typical terms for 15 and or 30 years. And even if your town adopts one of the tax exemptions so that you can create mixed income, or 80/20s is what we call them in New York City. Those also come with a restricted period where you have to maintain the affordability. So it's different for each program, but most of the time when at the end of the regulatory period, we try our best to incentivize owners to come back to us. We offer very low cost loans to help them recapitalize and rehabilitate properties. By the time you get to year 15 or year 30, a lot of the major systems, the facade, the individual units need work. And we're like the cheapest game in town. So that helps increase and incentivize affordability.
And most of the projects discussed before, most of these projects require some type of either zoning change or a provision or exception under the code to allow us to create the housing. When that happens, typically there's either a CNR, a covenant restriction on the property to keep it affordable in perpetuity, or if it's a zoning change, it's a part of the zoning change where it states in that law that it's affordable.
But
Hold on.
And that's a decision of the town board.
That's
right,
As
so
it gets
that
developed.
requires it to stay affordable, but the mechanics of affording it, as taxes go up, as money's required for maintenance, how do you keep the rents low when expenses are high and keep it affordable?
And now you see my issue, because several things are happening right now that people don't know behind the scenes. Landscaping, a lot more expensive than it has ever been. Insurance has increased drastically on all of our complexes. We're actually working right now through LEA, which is the Long Island Housing Authority agencies, and we're trying to come together with some form of legislation to help insurance companies better insure these affordable housing projects, because they're just out of control right now in terms of the costs. And then you have a wastewater treatment plant that requires an ongoing, not only a maintenance inspector who goes daily. It's not a weekly thing, it's a daily inspection. And then you have a recertification or inspection that happens quarterly and annually. So there's on-site maintenance and costs that happen on-site that are above and beyond just the energy cost and cutting the grass. There are so many other things we have to be concerned with. And then payroll, because each year we have to recertify the income, do inspections to make sure they're operating in the manner that the lease underwrites.
Okay, so I'm going to turn to Curtis to talk about the Easterner Motel. Ladies, I want to thank you all so much for joining us and providing us with all this wonderful information.
I wish we could see you all. I wish we could see you guys, but I hope you all have a a wonderful evening and happy holidays. And we're here if you need us anytime.
Thank you. We will be leaning on you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And we'll
Have a
let
nice
you,
evening, yeah.
we'll let you
Bye.
go. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
You too.
Good night.
Before Curtis says this, talks about the Eastern, I just wanted to, there's this one grant that I think is really important. Actually, they're all very important.
I'm going to bring up the lights.
But the public transportation modernization, I mentioned that earlier, and we have an underutilized rail track in Hampton that goes through Hampton Bays out to Montauk, and it all goes back to traffic. And as far as a solution for traffic, it's not going to fix it, but if we can get that rail line moving and having regular service, it's going to help. And that's something that I've been working on as a councilman. That's something that I will be continuing to work on in my new job. And seeing this grant, I think that this holds promise, and that is one of the many reasons why this town of Southampton would be a pro-housing community.
Yeah, let's give Tommy John Schiavoni a round of applause. He is our newly elected New York State Assemblyman. Congratulations.
Thank you, John.
And we look forward to your term, and we look forward to all that you can do to help us on the East End.
I appreciate it, and thank you all for coming out, because this is your evening too, and you're here with us talking about pro-housing community.
It's a fascinating topic.
Don't get me started.
Okay, Curtis.
Yes.
You're on. Talk to us about the Eastern Motel. What's going on there?
Well, I stated before, it's always been my goal to find pre-existing infrastructure so that every project we produce doesn't necessarily have to be new construction. We can start repurposing hotel, motel, resort communities, even homes that, because I believe some of the homes, especially in the villages like Southampton Village, it was always a community that had multi-family residents. Southampton Village were homes that were converted to single-family homes when people start coming in from and start taking on now a new found family group, and became now a single-family home. But those homes historically were multi-family. So when we can find situations like that and reconvert it back into multi-family, we can find hotels, motels that are currently operating year-round, and we can convert them into opportunities for workforce housing. I think it's a perfect means to an end. We looked at the Bentley about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and we made several offers to do that, and that was going to be the first opportunity for us to utilize that. Unfortunately, like in every situation, we got outbid. We didn't have the money, the owner didn't want to wait for zoning, and those are some of the other issues that we had. Because most of these projects, when we purchase them, there's an option agreement. We can't just outright buying, purchase these properties or these opportunities and not know if we'll ever get zoning or be able to actually produce the project. So we have to put some form of option, which takes time, money, and it takes the seller out of the situation where they can sell their home, sell their property, probably at an ask rate, shorter period of time with no contingencies. So it's very difficult to find these opportunities. I approached, and just full disclosure, this is right down the street from my house. So I have a vested interest in making sure that this is not only well ran, that it looks good, that it operates well, and it makes sure that the facade and everything looks presentable because it's my community. When I saw it, it was east of the canal, and I said, wow, an opportunity east of the canal, Shinnecock Hills. These are the opportunities we've been looking for some time. I was not aware that it was in Hampton Bays School. And it was when we went and applied for the application for the Community Housing Fund to pay for the acquisition, that came up in conversation. And it was suggested that I speak to the community, that I speak to the school, that I speak to all of you to let you know what was happening, and be transparent. What our plans are, what we're planning to do, and if you had questions, to address those questions before we move on. Yes?
I have a question. Why wouldn't that be zone Taco?
I agree. The school line actually incorporates this parcel, and it goes down, I believe, 4 lots past the east.
Really?
to
Almost
this.
to the college?
It's really weird. It's again, it made no sense. For years I thought as soon as you hit that sign, Hampton Bays, welcome to Hampton Bays, that was it. Everything west of that was Hampton Bays. Everything east would be in that particular area, Shinnecock Hills and Tuckahoe School. That's not the case here.
The water district.
And the water district too. So we looked at this opportunity. What it presents to us, actually, you know what? I'll be Vanna White right now.
No, I'll be Vanna White. Okay, which do you
I
want?
will show you the actual aerial. The Bentley shows four, which are 4 buildings that have studio units. There are 5 studios. One of the buildings has a 1-bedroom.
The Bentley or the?
This is Eastern.
Okay.
So it's 5 studios. One of the units has a 1-bedroom, and it's 2 2-bedroom cottages.
Is this picture what each of those looks like?
That is a representation of what the studios look like.
Nice.
It will be when we're done. See, one of my past life, I was the chair of the Architectural Board of Review and Historic Preservation for Southampton Village. I'm all about design. I'm all about making and creating whatever we produce has a residential feel, fits within the community, the decor, the street vernacular. Well, make sure it maintains a residential feel. So with that state money, they'll be able to give us revitalization money or repurpose money where I can change the facade, make it more residential. I'm looking at possibly roof lines where we'll look more of a residential feel. We'll use material, because this is stucco now. Not a fan of stucco, but we'll use material. We'll make it more energy efficient, change windows and doors to make it more energy efficient. And we were looking at solar as an opportunity for it to be more sustainable.
Now, these appear to have 3 units. Are you going to keep that?
Yes. So this is the one that actually has a 1-bedroom. And believe it or not, this is these 2 doorways represents 1 unit. It's a 1-bedroom. The 1-bedroom is here, this kitchen is here, and this is a studio. Okay. So that's the one building that is actually a 1-bedroom with a studio. I want to show you what the studio units look like. Mm-hmm. Each one of the studio is 350 square feet. So I had a question. How many kids are going to be represented in this community? 350 square foot. It's not really an environment. First of all, you have limitations based on code on how many people can occupy a unit. I believe it's 150 square foot per person. And that means 2 people can occupy this. That's what code allows.
And you'll monitor it?
We monitor everything. Well, I know. I get the reputation. Yes, I drive by to make sure grasses are cut. I count cars. I knock on doors. I say code enforcement when they need to be. I'm very much a present landlord. And I say this, and I said it before, and I'll say it again, because it only takes one bad opportunity for now affordable housing becomes a challenge moving forward. So we want to be the example. And when we can come before you and represent what we do, it's based on the experience. And people have seen. You see our Hampton Bays apartments, you drive by, you see Sandy Hollow and Spionk. They are the example of what affordable housing is in the community. You see the single family homes that we built, nearly 30 since 2014, when I picked up as executive director of the Housing Authority. And we were in Southampton Village, 3. You were a part of that as well. We've done some homes in Flanders. We've done homes in Riverside with the Habitat for Humanity. We just most recently worked with 2 homes here in Hampton Bays, where we did a lottery, nearly 200 people for 2 homes tried to apply for those homes. Guess who ended up getting it? 2 people who were residents of Hampton Bays. So we're building for locals. We don't have the preferences, because the preference is part of the application. People are present. People who apply are here. No one is going to apply from Westchester County to pay more money for less property to move out to East End of Long Island. It just doesn't happen. Either you have a job, family, or a prior experience, and that's the reason why you move out east. You don't do it just to say I live in the Hamptons.
Okay, perennial question. What is the anticipated impact on the school?
My answer to this has always been the same. It operates currently as a year-round rental, so its impact is what it has been this entire time. This particular parcel has had rental permits since 2016. Since 2016, what I've been told, one person from the school. Now, I'm not saying that's the number. I'm saying that's the impact based on history. No one's going to have a bunch of children in a 350 square foot unit.
Nobody's saying.
Well, it'd be very difficult, but then understand, I'm
I
still.
don't think we're passing judgment on people's sanity.
And again, with the housing authority, you get a couple of things. One, you get annual inspections. So we're looking at the property annually. We're also doing what we call the screening, where we screen individuals on an annual basis for income qualification. So they always have to be obviously income qualified. And three, it is always our goal to get people to the end goal, the home ownership. So what we're doing right now, and I presented before the town and on our 5-year plan, is that we're trying to create more programs and opportunities to get people who are participating in our program into home ownership.
So these are rentals?
These are rentals.
Okay. Where are you in the process?
We're in contract.
You're in contract?
We're in contract. We're waiting on appraisal. Once the appraisal's back and we have value, we'll finish our application with the town to get funding. And if that's approved, then the contract is subject to funding.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, if we can get this funded, I would love to start this the first quarter of next year.
And what's the next step in the process? So you would just begin working, renovating it?
Well, renovation, but first things first, it has to, there's 2 provisions that I have to go through in order to make this legal. The current provision, there's one that allows hotel, motel, resorts to be converted into into condos or co-ops. It's a provision under the code right now. If I take that route, the issue with that is the minimum square footage is 600 square foot. That means I would have to combine these studios to make them at minimum 600 square foot. I'm losing units. But if that's what has to be done, we have to do it. We have to take care of it. We have to make sure that if something's better than nothing right now. And if I'm getting the reimbursement or payment from the Community Housing Fund for the acquisition, I'm getting the state money for all of the renovation, and I can get CPF to help upgrade the septic system, it keeps my debt services lower, and therefore I can keep it affordable. The other provision is, there's a provision under the code that allows for pre-existing non-conforming to non-conforming use. So if there's a pre-existing non-conforming structure or use, and it's right now I believe this is R40 zoning.
I'm not sure.
But if there's a pre-existing non-conforming structure, I'm able to now apply for a non-conforming use. Still a provision where I have to go before the town and allow that use to happen, but what ends up happening is it becomes a planning and zoning direction rather than becoming a zoning change. So those are the 2 provisions I have. Both of those provisions do not allow me to increase the number of units. So that was another question. Do you have a plan to increase the number of units? I can't. The only way I can increase the number of units is I have to ask for a zoning change, which now is a process. I go before the board. They have to elect to consider me for a zoning change, and that's when the community comes in to vet the project. And chances are that won't fly well.
Do you intend on increasing the units?
No,
And these are rentals, right?
these are rentals.
Yeah, they're rentals. So are there is there any opportunity for the public to get involved in the conversation just yet, or not until you would need a change of use?
Letters in support to the town that this is necessary.
Okay.
Again, if we're doing 2 things, one, we're taking a blighted site and we're making it a asset to our community, and we're also creating affordable units within our community. What I know is most of the blue collar workers are here, and you know what? Some of them are not living in the best of conditions. They're overcrowded. They're just living in places. Sometimes they're illegal. I get the phone calls, and right now we have approximately 3,500 names on a waiting list under our attainable housing waiting list for people who are daily asking, when are you going to build the next complex? When are you going to build the next opportunity? When can I apply? The need is there. There will be a lottery, because I know that was one of the questions with the selection process. There will be a lottery. That lottery could be one or two things. Either it could be out of my waiting list, the 3,000 names, or I can have an open lottery. So those are the two provisions I'm able to do. Chances are I'll take it out of our waiting list, just so that we can keep it more manageable.
Do you ever see any circumstance under which we would be able to build more than just 8 units of affordable housing at a time? I know you said we never see 200 units.
We will never
I
see.
know what I did. That's about public will. But is there any? Do you see anything in the future?
Tommy John made a good point. We are a democracy, and there's always public support and not support. So we always run into, and unfortunately, this is a very passionate discussion. I know there's some fears and concerns on people who are not local being the individuals taking these units, and that's usually the largest argument, on top of impact to school, which is obviously people concerned about what the overall impact to school would be. I'm a firm believer, our families exist here. I have 2 children. I have my daughter is 24, graduated from Villanova, has a degree and has a great job. My son is 29 and has a degree in drafting and has a great job. They live with me because they can't afford to they can't afford to go anywhere. They reside with me. I had to retrofit an apartment downstairs for my sons and my family to live in. And guess what? They can never live in anything I build because of a conflict of interest. So I had to find someone else to build something soon.
I have a question over here. Here.
Oh, sorry.
Please.
Hi, thank you so much for explaining all this. You said that the space there is currently being used as a rental, like lease agreement. They don't have a permit for that though, right now, because it's motel permit. So are people living in it on a monthly basis?
Month to month.
Month to month, and it's sort of being used that way, but not necessarily.
But didn't you say there were rental permits?
There are rentals.
Since 2016.
Since 2016.
But is it zoned for that?
That's
You
right
don't
now
know.
it's
Okay,
zone
okay,
hotel motel resort.
Okay.
I
Got it. The other question is, you anticipate, with regards to the way it is now, and you're not necessarily combining, what the rent might be? Because we are talking about our kids, and my kids also live above a garage and whatever.
The goal is keeping payment standard at approximately 60 to 80% AMI, or area median income. That's actually true affordable. So if I can keep the studios under 900, that's a goal. If I can keep the 2 bedrooms under 1,000, that's a goal. But it's going to also be based on my debt services, because at the end of the day, where am I going to get my shortfall? I'm definitely going to have to go back to the community housing fund for more money. I'm definitely going to have to get an application in for the septic upgrades. But more importantly, everyone wants the lawns being maintained properly. You want trees planted in a manner that makes it look more desirable. You want to make sure that what's being produced there, nothing is slack or lack in terms of design and quality. So that costs money.
Okay, so we're getting on. It's almost 9 o'clock. I want to thank you both, Tommy John Schiavoni, Curtis Highsmith. Give them a round of applause. Thank you for coming out and sharing that evening with us. And in January, next meeting is going to be January 8th, and a potential topic is going to be the sewer district and wastewater management. So we're still putting that program together. It's an exciting program.
Sexy.
And we look forward to seeing you next month. Thank you. Happy holidays to everyone. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Happy New Year. We'll see you in the new year.